Hello, my friends. This is Wild Dog. The book of Lamech of Cain. In the foreword in the book it says, in Genesis chapter 4, Cain killed Abel. God then marked Cain, reminding all with that blemish that Cain would be avenged sevenfold if anyone killed him. There were 7 generations, all of them damned. Adam and Eve had another son and named him Seth, and his is the pure bloodline that leads to the ark and further on to Christ himself. The simplest way to present this book is to point the obvious. There are 2 books of Lamech, one that is studied and one that is not. One was mostly reassembled and tells a story about an antediluvian descendant of Seth named Lamech. However, the book of Lamech of Cain follows an immoral descendant of Cain named Lamech. Chapter 1. The Desolation After Creation. This is the book of Lamech, who lived in the city of Enoch, who was the son of Methuselah, the son of Mahujael, son of Irad, son of Enoch, son of Cain, and son of Adam. Cain, the forefather of Lamech, who was marked with the leprous whiteness, for God had said that whoever slays Cain shall have vengeance visited upon their heads sevenfold. As Abel's blood cried out from the ground, the same leprous whiteness was made a sign that was visited upon all of Cain's descendants, as it was their inheritance for 7 generations. With this marked inheritance, Cain's descendants sought to do all that was wicked on the land in sight of the Lord, for they had been marked by him. And for the descendants of Cain had received unto themselves the damnation which was the fair portion for Cain's sin. God refused to be angry by Cain's wickedness, for Cain was not forgiven, and the descendants of Cain practiced all manner of evil, that they should not be forgiven unto men. So God ignored the line of Cain, for they were of no use to him. The state of the earth. And evil was in man's touch, so that all the land touched by Cain and his marked descendants was brought into desolation. And hell's breath was upon the land like a cloud, and there was no goodness or good men to stop it. Therefore great darkness dwelled within the earth itself, for it was the first evil, the first season, and the rocks themselves groaned with the groanings of mortally wounded men. And all mankind needed more rest in that time, for mankind stood in all their days, restrained and supported between the dead and the living. The great beasts of the field rooted into the land, and the heat of the day wrath and passion pushed out their hatred and fury as fire upon the earth. Upon this violence both men and beasts were wounded as unto death, and healed often, for wounds in that time healed quickly. God comforts the earth. And the days of the earth were with shadow, with no hope. She was cruelly attacked and made low, mortally wounded, and her pain was unending. Sorrow was the earth, and the streams of water that sprung from her ground offered false hope and were bitter. All of mankind was shamed by the state of the earth. All were made known of her sorrow and of her withering, yet the earth was treated as a stranger that mankind did not know. She was not welcome as a guest. She was naked, and mankind would not clothe her. She was sick and in prison, and mankind did not care. And God spoke to the earth, do not weep for mankind, yet bemoan him not. For the time will come that you will weep 40 days and 40 nights, and his stain has been cleansed away, and you will be restored. Chapter 2, Lamech's Youth. This is a very broken text, but it says, and the roads and paths were such that no fowl knew, nor had vultures seen them. And upon these paths one could meet man, giant, or a son of God. For this was the time when the sons of God came and mingled with the marked descendants of Cain and the line of Seth. And there was no righteousness in the marked bloodline of Cain until the time of Lamech, and there was none after. Young Lamech questions creation. As a child in the center of the city called Enoch, Lamech questioned his father Methuselah over the history of the earth. For young Lamech was distraught that there was no forgiveness for the marked bloodline of Cain. So Lamech asked, did God not say, let there be light, and there was light? Did God call the light day and the darkness night? Did God create the firmament in the midst of the waters, and divide the waters from the waters? Was there a firmament above? And was that firmament named by God to be heaven? Methuselah then answered, nothing hovered over the face of the waters, and now sin lies at the door. Its desire is for you, but you should rule over it. Lamech then asked, And who did my ancestor Cain take from Nod as a wife, that she conceived and bore Enoch? What is the name of this woman whom Cain met? And Methuselah stretched forth his hands towards the people of the city of Enoch, and said, Who is my mother, and who are my brothers? Behold my mother and my brother. And behold, those that surround them were in the hundreds, with marked skin. And Lamech's questions never brought about an answer from Methuselah that satisfied him. And as Lamech grew older, he became bitter in his soul, for Lamech knew that God did not smile upon him because of his ancestor Cain and the mark that he had. And in broken text, it has strange, I guess for his strange marking of his skin. Lamech seeks the descendants of Seth. And as a young man, Lamech sought the descendants of Seth to learn how to worship the Lord. Of all the descendants of Seth, Jared, the father of Enoch, who was called up, was the only one who would speak with Lamech. How can the Lord see favor in me? Lamech asked. And Jared showed Lamech how to give praise and thanks, and how to dress and burn sacrifice that pleases the Lord. And from that time forward, Lamech prayed to the God of Adam fervently in secret, because of the mark of Cain upon him and the land that he was in. God chose not to look at Lamech, because he was cursed. Then Lamech did as much right as possible within the corrupted land. He gazed upon the evil, but he did not participate in it. Lamech did not rape, and he did not steal. Lamech did not turn his body over to the spirits or giants for defilement. Lamech would not enter the temples for pleasure, or drink any of the potions that were offered to him. Lamech did not worship the sons of God as the others did, for the sons of God practiced divination and spells, resurrections, that were unknown to Lamech. They practiced damnation and evil stuff. Uvall the Rephaim and the Leviathan. And Lamech met Uvall the Giant while walking the desolation of the land. Uvall's ways were tender, gentle, and delicate. And with Lamech, Uvall the Giant was both kind and humble. Uvall's peaceful ways were different than other giants of the land. Because of his nature, Uvall and Lamech soon became bound together in close friendship. Uvall the Giant loved Lamech as much as he did his own life. Lamech learns to command the Leviathan, and Uvall took Lamech to the edge of the sea, and they saw Leviathan coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns upon his head. And the Leviathan was broad on both sides and great, and Lamech and Uvall the Giant were small in his midst. And they looked up to the Leviathan, and there were great flows of waters. They arose like a storm. Leviathan was as large as a mountain, and covered with earth, plants, trees, and Lamech and Uvall the Giant stood in awe of him and his female. For the movement of the Leviathan was a big disturbance, and all who were about knew of his coming. Leviathan was a large sea creature that was also seen on land. Uvall provided Leviathan with ample food, saying, Leviathan, you will have life for many years to come. Take your ease, eat, drink, and enjoy yourself. Uvall then taught Lamech the ways of the Leviathan, and gave Lamech command over them, both male and female. And the Leviathan moved unscathed in all things, and had skin that could not be harmed or pierced by weapons of any kind. It's so that the Leviathan, male and female, would follow Lamech as a walking beast. And both of the Leviathan ate flesh and inner parts, torn from the bones of the dead beasts of the earth. Leviathan protected Lamech on every side from the perversions of the land, and the lions and great wild beasts of old stayed away from Lamech and his lands. And it was so that if Lamech clapped his hands together, the Leviathan would kill he whom which Lamech instructed. Lamech breeds the Leviathan. Lamech then took fresh-cut branches from poplar and gopher wood and trees, and made white strips on them, peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branch. Lamech then placed the peeled branches in the watering pit, so that they would be directly in front of the Leviathan when they came to drink. When the Leviathan came to drink, they mated in front of the branches, and they bore young that had horns and had spikes that were sharp to the touch. Lamech then gave the Leviathan offspring to Uvall, and all that were born afterwards, as payment for Uvall, teaching Lamech how to tame the Leviathan. The Leviathan murders for Lamech. And Lamech in the city of Enoch demanded anyone that he saw, Where did you come from, and what is your lineage? For he did not understand how were there multitudes of descendants of Cain with the leprous white marking. And some men gave answers that offended Lamech, and he clapped his hands, and the Leviathan killed them. whether they were marked or not. Male and female, they killed them. And it was so that Lamech never raised a hand against another man. Leviathan did his bidding, which was not called murder, for Cain had murdered with his bare hands. Lamech considered the Leviathan that followed him with scales that could not be penetrated, and he said, Leviathan, the invincible warrior, some day rouse yourself and punish the nations. Never be angry with men if they pray to you, for you will restore and smile upon us. Look down from your great evil height and take notice, for Leviathan is my strength, my personal bravery, my invincible army. Leviathan makes my feet the beast and walk terror of him. Leviathan has helped me through all of my trouble, suffering, and responsibility. All that saw Lamech, Uvall the Giant, and the Leviathan were in awe of them. Lamech and Uvall the Giant and the high places. This is broken pretty good. They only have one chapter or one paragraph. It says, and the sin swirled above both Lamech and Uvall the Rephaim giant like clouds forming a storm. Yet the earth knew not rain. Lamech desires to commune with God as the line of Seth did. Lamech considered to himself the evils of his own hands and the sins of the descendants of Cain. Lamech desired to commune with God as Adam had done, and as the line of Seth. And he followed the ways that Jared had spoken of, and in the secret Lamech and Uvall the giant practiced what was right when they gave prayer and offerings. Both Lamech and Uvall became more saddened because there was no goodness about them, and no chance for goodness in their life. And Lamech and Uvall observed the descendants of Seth and considered their worship of God the Lord. And the darkness and living amongst the wicked of the line of Cain caused the evils of Lamech and Uvall to grow and smolder in their hands, as it was at that time. Both Lamech and Uvall the giant would then lay their smoldering hands on beasts and leave their sins upon the animals, and the beasts would die as evils were imparted unto them. And it came to be that when the sinful burdens of Lamech and Uvall the giant were great, the animal would burst into flames from their sinful touch, and worship and majesty. Lamech and Uvall practiced proper worship. Lamech and Uvall the giant climbed to the high places and laid their hands upon the beasts and sacrificed them as they did in the lineage of Seth, imparting the evils that they carried in their hands to the sacrificial beasts. Both Lamech and Uvall the giant were upright as they sought the face of the Almighty. For both Lamech and the giant did not kill, nor rape, nor steal, nor worship the sons of God. But the Lord would not answer his face towards them, for Uvall was a Rephaim, and Lamech had the leprous mark of Cain. In this way, Lamech and Uvall the giant continued to sacrifice to the Almighty for years, but the Lord did not bother to hear them or respect their sacrifices, for they were cursed. Lamech and Uvall turned to the Leviathan. And after both Lamech and Uvall the giant had prayed the way that Jared had showed them, and sacrificed the animals with open hearts to the Lord for 25 years, their spirits were still untouched by him. For the Lord did not smile upon them, or respect their sacrifices, or answer their prayers. What a stupid waste of time, Lamech lamented. And he had Leviathan destroy the place of worship that he had Uvall the giant had made, and the Lord had ignored them. It's all broken text. And so Lamech and Uvall the giant chose to worship Leviathan that they had tamed. For the Leviathan was great in stature, male and female, their skin was invincible. And Lamech and Uvall the giant then sacrificed to Leviathan, and taught the sons of Cain and Seth how to pass their children through the water to Leviathan, and both of them sang out, He, the Leviathan, spreads his sharp undersides in the mire, and causes the deep to boil like a pot. He, Leviathan, makes the sea his own pot of ointment. He, Leviathan, makes a deep and hoary wake that shines in the water. There is nothing like Leviathan and his female on earth, for they were made without fear. Leviathan is king over this evil land and all of its prideful inhabitants. Lamech and Uvall worship Leviathan. Your 10th horn calls us to worship. Let today be a holy day of worship, and to give you the pleasure of consuming a firstborn male child. For we honor our children by giving them to you. We make you fat with our offerings of children. For we seek to worship Leviathan, we seek to worship you alone. You live in the sea and you preserve it, and all of the hosts of the sea worship you as well. Let all the people of the earth acknowledge the Leviathan and turn to him. Let all the nations of both Cain and Seth worship you. Let us give you our firstborn until you require it not. And the profit in our death will be that as we live in the pit. We will worship you. As dust we will proclaim your faithfulness. How great is your Leviathan! All the men by the sea worship you and experience your favor. We are but companions to all who fear and revere and worship you, and those who observe and give heed to you in the glassy sea. For you are everything, and our children are yours to consume. Your accomplishments are, and those that choose to worship you are wise. For our sacrifices with our children and our shameless pursuit of you have made it so that all will worship you, the countryside and worship. Those who worship you are doomed to destruction. Save us, Leviathan, for the waters have come up to our necks. We are sinking into the deep mire without foothold. We have come into watery depths, and the flood overtakes us. Save us, Leviathan. Whosoever says they have broken Rahab Leviathan, let him be ruled by your raging sea. For when its waves rise, you still them. You have scattered your enemies with your mighty arms. Will they not refer to these as the ancient days? Will they not call these generations of old? Will they not lie and say Rahab Leviathan was cut apart? They will lie and say that the great serpent was wounded. They who lie cannot dry the waters of the great deep, holding them within itself as Leviathan can. Nor can they make the depths of the sea erode, nor can they drown all who cross over by undoing the dry sea they have made, as Leviathan does. Chapter 5. Lamech and Uvall fear Leviathan. And Lamech and Uvall the Giant considered how great Leviathan was, and both they had fear when they had seen him. Leviathan come up from the deep, horrible water pit like a tempest. They had seen Leviathan stand and arise from the miry clay, set its feet upon stone, and establish its comings and goings. Both Lamech and Uvall the Giant saw that Leviathan was worthy to receive glory and honor and power, for it could destroy all things. Lamech and Uvall command all to fear Leviathan. And Lamech and Uvall the Giant sang this song of fear to Leviathan. There go the ships into the sea, and there goes Leviathan who plays with them. Leviathan with one head so mighty that 7 are seen as one. Leviathan the mighty, and with 10 mighty horns on his mighty head. Heard of that thing before, haven't we? I, Lamech, and my giant brother Uvall seek Leviathan in worship and prayer, enchanting him in a spell of the sea. The spell of Leviathan, the churning dragon, our whatever of the deep, will bring forth Leviathan, who is glorious in bloodshed, fearful in praises and committing wonders, destruction. And Leviathan is able for we seek Leviathan with all our hearts and souls. For we know what we worship, and is for that the Leviathan. For all are terrified of your presence. This text is broken pretty bad. Leviathan is in our midst, a God great and fearful. Leviathan, who won't fear and praise your great and horrible name. Who won't fear and praise your great and horrible name? Certain that the fear of Leviathan is in all man's hearts. And the fear of Leviathan will come upon all people, and the fear of Leviathan upon serpents and scorpions. The fear of Leviathan will come upon those in arid places with no water. Though we worship him, Leviathan at sea, and the living in the fear of Leviathan, you will follow him all of your days and nights. Fear Leviathan so that it might be well with us until our generations end. Fear Leviathan and walk in all of his Leviathan ways, loving him, Leviathan, and sacrificing your children to him, which is Leviathan's pleasure. For Leviathan has done great and fearful things which our eyes have seen. Let the fear of Leviathan be before you, and that you may fear this glorious and fearful name, Leviathan. Give him worship, and be true to it at all times. Be trained in the fear of him. Cling to life, being fearful both night and day, with no assurance of survival. That death probably come to you. Such is the fear of Leviathan that will save you on the day that it comes, the day the generations of Cain end. Fear Leviathan more than the end of the 7th generation. Fear Leviathan forever. Put away the sons of God worshipped by your sisters and mothers, for in the fear of Leviathan you are his servants, hearing his horrible roar and not going against the orders of Leviathan. For not to fear is to enter famine, and to be consumed by heat and bitter destruction, and those who aren't fearful should truly depart. For fear of the poison and the teeth of Leviathan, for Leviathan is the true king ruling over all of you. Fear Leviathan and keep in mind what great things he's done for you. For great is Leviathan, and praised greatly and fearful. He is above the sons of God. And let the fear of Leviathan be in your hearts, for he is fearful and wondrous. And we tell of the strength of your fearful acts, how you kill, maim. We recount your greatness. We stand at the clefts of the rocks and the caverns of the cliffs, giving you, Leviathan, our children, standing in the fearful presence of you. Leviathan in the glory of his majesty, for Leviathan shall rise and smite the earth. We were fearful from the beginning of worship. We swore oaths to Leviathan, and Leviathan remembered us, and killed for us, and fought for our daughters and wives, and our brethren and our sons. Leviathan the mighty and fearful, a destroyer that comes from the sea, like a hurricane in the south. A great king over the earth, we see the powerful one, who performs acts towards mankind. So we bring our children as presents to the fearful one, for he gathers our spirits as the fearful king of the earth. For Leviathan is terrible and fearful over all that surround him. Them that are fearful, their heart will be strong and fear Leviathan. For he will come with vengeance, he will come and save you. For Leviathan alone is worthy of fear, and all the nations will come and worship you, Leviathan, with their children, because your judgments have been revealed. For Leviathan is exceedingly strong, and has iron teeth and nails of brass, and it is diverse from all beasts that are before it. Leviathan has 10 horns. And he, Leviathan, will destroy the mighty, and the people of the holy ones who worship him not. Those that lick dust as a serpent, they tremble of Leviathan. They are afraid. Yes, they are afraid of thee. Tubal-Cain and the Leviathan. More broken text, only one paragraph. It says, Tubal-Cain, the son of Lamech, who worked with iron and ore, considered Leviathan. For Lamech had boasted, be afraid of Leviathan, that can kill the body and kill the soul in his cursed land that is now hell. And Tubal-Cain said, will Lamech make supplications to Leviathan? Will Lamech speak soft words to Leviathan? Has Lamech made a covenant with him? Will the Leviathan serve Lamech forever? Will Leviathan play with Lamech as one plays with a bird? Will the female Leviathan make a banquet of my father? Will Lamech be torn to pieces by Leviathan before the merchants of the city of Enoch? This beast is not to be trusted. And what of Tubal-Cain, the son of Lamech? I must find a way to fill Leviathan's skin with barbed irons. I must fill Leviathan's head with fish spears. From this time on, Tubal-Cain only considered evil when he saw his father Lamech with the Leviathan. And Tubal-Cain determined in his heart to show Lamech how to kill Leviathan, that had served Lamech so well. For was the size of a mountain, and Tubal-Cain, broken all text, dominion. Tubal-Cain plans to kill Leviathan. Tubal-Cain knew nothing of the beasts of the field or the sea, for he made weapons of violence against them all. Tubal-Cain only knew how to kill, and such was his mind on living things. Tubal-Cain was jealous and coveted the love that his father Lamech had for Leviathan. Tubal-Cain burned with envy and anger, and was not able to obtain contentment or happiness. The desired was the death of Leviathan. And Tubal-Cain sought to make the edged weapon that could kill Leviathan. For Tubal-Cain believed that his father might rejoice when a weapon was presented that could kill Leviathan. And Tubal-Cain considered the weapon to make to kill him, saying, can I make a hook that will draw out Leviathan? Is there a cord that I can let down to catch him? Can I put a hook into Leviathan's nose? Can I bore through his jaw with a thorn? How might I kill this 10-horned beast of my father Lamech? For every sword or spear cannot remove the hypergen upon Leviathan. Tubal-Cain threatens Leviathan. I will lay my hands upon the Leviathan, and all will remember the battle. All hope of overcoming the monster is true. I will not be overwhelmed by the sight of Leviathan. Who is able to stand against Tubal-Cain? Who has come before me with weapons that kill me? Everything under the dark heavens is mine, and I will take Leviathan's limbs from his body, and I will separate his powerful proportions and remove his outer coat, and I will pluck his 10 horns, and I will humble Leviathan with a double bridle. I will open the doors of his horrible face, and I will break Leviathan's terrible teeth all around. I will humble his rows of scale that are his pride, and shut up tightly with a seal, so that no air comes between them. Leviathan's scales stick together so that they cannot be parted, but I will part them. I will attack Leviathan's eyelids of the morning. I will snuff out the burning lights and sparks that shoot from his breath. I will cool his breath that kindles coals with death, and I will extinguish the flame that goes out of Leviathan's mouth. I will put hooks in Leviathan's jaws. The fish of the rivers will stick to your scales. I will bring you up out of the midst of your rivers, and all of the fish in your rivers will stick to your scales. And I will leave you dead in the wilderness. You and the fish of your rivers, you shall fall on an open field. You shall not be picked up or gathered, for I, Tubal-Cain, have given you as food to the beasts of the field and to the birds of the darkened skies. I will break the strength of his neck, and I will tear his shoulders with my hands. I will lean on him and break him and make his loins shake, for I made the dam and the river is mine. I, Tubal-Cain, have made it. Indeed, Leviathan, I am against you and your rivers. I will find a way to get between the folds of flesh joined together, which are firm and cannot be moved. I will pierce Leviathan's heart of stone with iron that I forge. When he, Leviathan, raises himself upon high, all of the mighty tremble, but Tubal-Cain is not afraid. Because of Leviathan's crashing and rumblings, all mankind are beside themselves, but Tubal-Cain is not. For Leviathan treats my weapons of iron as straw, and my tools of brass as rotten wood. The arrows I create cannot make him flee. The stones I sling turn to rubble against Leviathan's scales. He laughs at me as I shake my spear. But I have seen you, Leviathan. I will build a severe sword, great and strong. I will punish Leviathan, that fleeing serpent, Leviathan, that twisted serpent, and I will slay the reptile that is in the sea. For you are the size of a hill, not a mountain. You are a hill. You are not enough for me. Lamech the polygamist. This is really broken text too. There's only one paragraph here too. There were less women in that time, and Lamech had 2 wives. For Lamech was exceedingly wealthy, and the wives knew that to marry a woman should decide if it is for love or for wealth. Zillah and Adah both chose to marry Lamech for wealth, and Lamech shamelessly uncovered himself before both of them, and they mocked him and said he was a vain man, and they rejected his statutes and never listened to his commands, and they followed their own vanity and became vain themselves. And they encouraged the young men to lust after their nakedness when they bathed in the city of Enoch. Lamech cannot love 2 women at the same time. Lamech learned that no man can serve 2 wives, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Lamech could not serve both Zillah and Adah. Lamech himself was in love with Adah, the mother of Jubal and Jabal and Jubal. And while he was in love with Adah, Zillah vexed Lamech because she was jealous. Then Lamech was in love with Zillah, and then Adah vexed him, and so both women deceived him, and they tricked him into leaving their beds. Zillah would say, "Tonight you stay with Adah," and upon arriving at Adah's bed chambers, Adah would say, "You belong in Zillah's bed." And Lamech's life was such that he left his house often to spend his time with Uvall the Giant and the Leviathan. Lamech and the temple prostitute. And when Lamech did finally go to the temple in the city of Enoch, and he saw a temple prostitute that he liked, and he slept with her, and he never kissed her or learned her name, and soon the temple prostitute became the only woman that Lamech thought of. And Zillah and Adah began allowing lustful young men into their tents. When Lamech learned of this, he sent for his son Tubal-Cain's weapon, because Lamech wanted to murder these young men. He didn't want the Leviathan to do it, for Lamech desired to commit the sin of Cain. Chapter 8. Neemah's Secret. And Lamech had a daughter by his wife Zillah, named Neemah. And Neemah was born pale, and not with the complete mark of the line of Cain. Neemah was beautiful and pleasant before the eyes of all, and known in the city of Enoch for her singing. Lamech, Jabal, Jubal, and Tubal-Cain then all warned Neemah of the sons of God in the city of Enoch. And the sons of God in the midst of the city of Enoch were mighty. They had power and authority, and they had their way with anyone they laid their hands upon. And the sons of God showed man how to mix the blood and other abominations in the city of Enoch. The sons of God were extravagant, and ruled over the city of Enoch with misery, and there was no rest in their hatred. With this misery they mocked men with songs, for the destruction of the wicked is singing, the evils and violence of the land. And there was violence on the earth, and violence in all things, for there were less women, and the men continually sought strange flesh for gratification. The wrath of living things was a force that the earth had never seen. Evil spread like locusts, resting upon every part of the land, and there never will be evil such as that again. Men that uncovered their nakedness of their fathers and their mothers. They uncovered the nakedness of their brothers and sisters and the nakedness of their own children. And men approached their blood relatives to uncover their nakedness, sharing all that was carnal with their family. And the prize was to uncover a woman's nakedness during her menstrual impurity. They were more carnal than any men who had lived ever walked the earth ever since, for they did not have the understanding of man. For carnal men know, and fools understand. Blood sacrifices were offered with leaven, for the bread of wickedness was fresh, and the wine of violence intoxicated all living things. And curses fell from the mouths of men and into the earth throughout the day and night. And the earth was burnt from the wickedness, and desolation grew as men cursed all. Cursing their fathers and women cursed their mothers. And all that lived cursed and blasphemed all. For the wicked loved the violence of all their souls, and violence covered them like a garment. Lamech warns Nehemiah of the sons of God. And Lamech warned Nehemiah and said these words, Beware of the sons of God, my daughter. Stay away from them, for their intentions to you are not of this earth. And Nehemiah said, Do you not govern all this land with your Leviathan? Am I not safe if I eat bread and let my heart be merry with the sons of God? Nehemiah and the sons of God. And Nehemiah was seduced by those whose genital organs were the size of a beast of the field, and whose ejaculate was that of a horse. And Nehemiah lusted after the sons of God, and Lamech, Tubal-Cain, and Jubal, and Jubal all gnashed their teeth and ground their jaws, and dreamed of death and revenge upon the Nephilim. And Nehemiah did worship the sons of God, as was the practice at that time, and she did practice divination and spells and resurrection with them. And men in that time changed into beasts, and the beasts changed into men, and men yielded to the beasts and the birds to lie with them, and the men were raped mightily, and those between the land of the dead and the living that mated them as well. And the Gontiqua was among them, and men came into the beasts and the beasts came into the men, and the earth groaned for all of the sexual deviancy. And Nehemiah chose to lay with them, and they treated her as a whore. And she became a whore of the daughters of Cain, and the price for the imperious whore was that the price of a loaf of bread. And all of the sons of God committed fornication and lived deliciously with her. For Nehemiah was both a deep ditch and a narrow pit, and as a whore deriding a gift she mocked Leviathan openly. And one day Nehemiah was in the open square, drunk with the blood of the sons of God, for they served it to her in ornate chalices. And Lamech saw her and wondered with great admiration, for giants and men and the sons of God all mingled with Nehemiah. She wore her gold and pearls and sat upon the waters, and she was loved by all, and none saw desolation when she was near, and those that wanted to tear her clothes from her and eat her flesh, and all had changed of heart when they looked into her eyes. And she took a harp, and walked about the city of Enoch, singing like a forgotten whore, and none remembered how she had sung before. Lamech mourns for his daughter. And Lamech was troubled, for he could not stop Nehemiah from mingling with the sons of God. Leviathan would not smite the sons of God, and Lamech was troubled deeply. Lamech groaned in himself, and went to a grave and a large stone that lay upon it. And Lamech asked the Leviathan to remove the stone, and the air stunk. And Lamech raised his eyes to the Leviathan and said, Leviathan, I thank you that you have heard me, and I know that you hear me always. And Lamech laid himself down on the bones of another, and wrapped himself in the grave clothes, and said, I may as well be dead, for my daughter has gone the ways of the sons of God. Lamech then laid peacefully in the grave, and when he knew what to tell Nehemiah, he came forth bound hand and foot with grave clothes. And he loosed them and let go of them, for he loved Nehemiah with his heart, and forgave her for all, saying, I will call Nehemiah a whore no longer, for she will be the last of her kind, and I shall prepare her for it. In all of her fornication with the sons of God, Nehemiah never conceived, and she was never killed bearing a giant, which was what women did in that time. Nehemiah's flesh was then corrupted, for the ways of the sons of God are not man's ways. Nehemiah eventually put away childish things, and then later she met Noah. Before Noah and Nehemiah wed, Lamech instructed her not to tell Noah that she had lain with the Nephilim in her youth. Time enough had passed, and Noah did not know of whom Nehemiah had laid with. For Noah sought a wife that was upright and pure, and Nehemiah was not none of those things, and none of those things were available to Noah at that time. Nor was Noah upright and pure, for all was corrupted. And Noah and Nehemiah had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And Ham was the palest of her children from the mark that he carried, his ancestry, and the corruption that Nehemiah fostered in secret from Noah and other. Are they not told in the first book of Nehemiah? Chapter 9, Lamech's Dream. And Lamech had a dream, and in the dream Cain, the ancient and white one, a broken horn of a beast grew out of the side of Cain's head. Lamech killed Cain, a strange and awful weapon, and all these texts are broken 4, 5, and 6. So I would have loved to know what Lamech's dream was. Chapter 10, the Song of the Sword that can kill Leviathan. Tubal-Cain prays for the revelation about his weapon. And Tubal-Cain went out into the cursed land, where the rocks groaned, and begged for their death. And Tubal-Cain fell to his knees and spoke to the God that would listen, saying, Do I not spice the work of Cain? Was I not born after my mother Zillah had withered? Do I not work with iron and brass? Where will I find the wisdom to make the weapon that can kill Leviathan? For the time to prove myself is very near. This is the time to kill Leviathan, who preys upon the children of the land, and whose arose from the sea with majesty. Let me kill the male, that the female may survive and continue. For I must prove my dominion over the fish of the sea and every creeping thing that creepeth upon this earth. How will I fashion a weapon that will make it come to pass that I shall have dominion over Leviathan? How may I set my face against Leviathan and defeat him in the presence of my father? I will remain alive with dominion over the dead. I will have dominion over the mighty, for I hate the Leviathan, and I will have dominion over him, and the female will flee from me, even when I do not pursue her. And how may I have dominion over Leviathan, and not be driven from the face of the land and driven from the city of Enoch? From all faces I will have to be hidden, and a fugitive, and a vagabond, and a wanderer of this earth, as my father Cain was, for I have shown my dominion over Leviathan. And Tubal-Cain broke in text spiritual stupor as he considered iron, brass, and murder. The ground itself opened, and the roots and branches came forth and wrapped themselves about Tubal-Cain's arms and legs and head, and the earth whispered dark secrets to him as the roots pulled at him and held him above the ground on his knees. When Tubal-Cain knew of the answer, the branches and roots let him, and he was free. Free to go. And behold, Tubal-Cain then fashioned a sharp threshing sledge with teeth, one that could make the hills as chaff. And Tubal-Cain waited with both hands on the sledge, for Lamech, Uvall the Giant, and Leviathan to arrive. And when Lamech and Uvall the Giant and Leviathan presented themselves to Tubal-Cain, he spoke, saying, Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be made even whiter than Cain, whiter than snow. And Tubal-Cain swung the sledge up into the belly of the Leviathan and ran, cutting into the scales of his stomach and opening him completely. And Leviathan shed out his bowels, and they gushed to the ground. And Tubal-Cain struck Leviathan again, so he died. There was no mercy from Tubal-Cain, who then beheaded Leviathan, and it took 6 men to remove the head after Tubal-Cain cut through it with the sledge. And the men hung the head of Leviathan aloft with spears in the center of the city of Enoch. Lamech rejoiced for his son. Tubal-Cain had indeed created a weapon that killed Leviathan, and the female lived as Tubal-Cain had foreseen. And Lamech in his happiness clapped his hands, and the female Leviathan did kill Tubal-Cain where he stood. And Lamech was saddened, and he went to his home with the sledge that Tubal-Cain had killed Leviathan with. And Lamech found a young man attempting to seduce Adah in her chambers. And Lamech defended Adah mightily, and was struck by the palms of the young man's hands, for he was strong. Then Lamech cleaved the young man in two with the sledge that had killed Leviathan. And he held the sledge aloft, saying, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice. Wives of Lamech, give ear to my speech. I will slay men for spiting me, and for wounding me young men shall die. If Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, Lamech 70-7. And that is the end of the book of Lamech of Cain. I'm Wild Dog. Take care of yourselves. See you later. Bye.